Hi, Kyle and Keela here from Decise, and today we are going to do what you may have been wondering about for years. We are going to explain what in the world is cryptocurrency and what is the blockchain. So if you've always been wondering this, or you've tried to read about it, we're going to try to do this in 5 minutes or less. Just what are they? What in the world are they? So let's just start with Keela. Just what is the blockchain? Like, what makes that a novel technology? Just in layman's terms, like if you're a non-technologist, what in the world is the blockchain?
It is a record keeping system that's not owned by any one individual or one company. There's a lot of participants that help contribute to putting data in this record keeping system, and it ends up creating a chain. So you want to put one entry or one piece of information in this record keeping system, you submit it. There are people who validate the information, and then they actually put it in the system, and it's called a block for that piece of information. And then somebody else wants to put information as a record into this record keeping system. Same process happens. There's people that validate it. The first person that validates it actually gets to create the block and attach it to the block before it. There's some sophisticated algorithms that help link one block to another block, so you can't displace blocks or start whole new chains without it being known. But that's kind of a simple way. It's keeping information in a record keeping in a system that's publicly available, and there's a bunch of people that actually work to validate the information and put it on this chain using algorithms.
I love it. So we'll do this like in reverse style, which is like you say the easy to understand version, and then I'll tie it back to some of the buzzwords. So we often hear blockchain. Okay, it's immutable. So what we mean by that is it's permanent and it can be never change. It can never change. And if you tried to rip one of the blocks out, it would error. Okay, so it's immutable. And you said that it's not owned by anybody, so it's distributed. So there is no central authority that steers and directs the type of transactions that can go on the blockchain. So it's distributed, it's immutable, and then, like you said, it's a ledger. So it's meant for tracking transactions over time. A couple other kind of things I find interesting about it. The entirety of blockchain is about 250 gigabytes. So most people with just a regular old laptop can download it. They can download Bitcoin, which is the really the seminal, biggest, oldest blockchain that's out there, and you can contribute to validating the information that are within the blocks that you described. So the common buzzword that we hear there, right, is mining, miners. So what are miners doing? Maybe tell us a little bit more about that. Like,
Yeah.
what is a blockchain or a Bitcoin miner? Why are all these people trying to do that?
Yeah, well, and I'll step back real quick too, because blockchain is a is just it's a concept of what you were just talking about, this immutable distributed ledger. There are lots of blockchains. There's not just one.
Yes.
There's a really popular one, which is one of the first kind of seminal ones, right? Which is Bitcoin, and that is a blockchain that uses proof of work, is what they call it. That's an algorithm. It's a process in which the validators are validating the information and creating the blocks and using algorithms to be able to do it. It's a really tough algorithm to solve. And so the process of solving that algorithm, you have to guess a bunch of numbers to find the number that works in this big algorithm. And it takes a lot of computing power to try a lot of different values in a short amount of time. But whoever gets it first gets to put the block on the chain. And they're rewarded for finding it first, and they get a coin, a Bitcoin. And so that process right there is called mining. You use your computer and computing power to find the right number, nonce, that's going to make an algorithm work and it's the next in line in this chain, and then you get the rights to build that block, and you're rewarded with a coin. Now, that's kind of an easy way to look at it, but
That's great.
there's some challenges in that, and those people that are doing that, they're called miners. They're not actually digging for any coins anywhere, right? They're using computing power to solve an algorithm first, so they can get the coin. And if you get to put the block on the chain, there's a number of, like, you get actually a quantity of coins, and that quantity changes over time. Every so many years, it's reevaluated. How much is it worth to be the first one to solve the algorithm and put the block on the chain? But that's what a miner is. Now, not every blockchain uses miners. Not every blockchain uses proof of work or computing power to solve an algorithm to put the next block on the chain. That's why you may hear in some other chains, you don't hear of miners. There's proof of work and you have miners, but there's other types of validation processes like proof of stake, and multiple ones where you don't require the same level of computing power in order to generate the next block. And you're not necessarily rewarded with any type of coin or token either.
Oh, perfect. I think you touched on a couple of really good things, which is like Bitcoin was released as open source. And just like most open source software, it spawned a whole bunch of derivative works. And one of the good things, or one of the challenging things about Bitcoin, is it has a set number of coins that will be produced ever. And that number is 21 million. And so some of these derivative works, and I don't mean that in a negative way, open source software spawns innovation. Those other chains have changed the amount of supply. Of course, some have a fixed supply, some don't have a fixed supply. Some have mining, proof of work, some have proof of stake, some don't have any. And so, Bitcoin in particular is not really, it's not a real coin, it's not legal tender. Because there is a fixed supply, of course, then there is a market that takes place, largely off chain, which answers this question of how much am I willing to pay for a Bitcoin? And I don't think we'll talk about that. It's very volatile and a lot goes into it. But I think I wanted to share that because you might be asking yourself, especially like now we're a couple of years past it, you go, all I got to do is turn my laptop on and I'll mine Bitcoin and I'll probably be like a millionaire in a month.
I wish.
If it was only that easy. The reality of it is, though, because Bitcoin uses the proof of work approach to validating the blocks, there are literally millions of people that are mining those blocks. And in order for it to take roughly the same amount of time to validate a new block, the algorithm adds more difficulty at certain intervals. And so it should take roughly 5 to 10 minutes to complete the validation of a block and get it added to the blockchain. But what it means is us mere mortals with normal laptops are not going to be able to run Bitcoin and win very many of those competitions. I think I saw that in a typical month, if you just left your computer on, normal computer running 24/7, you would have roughly a 78 to 80% chance of solving one block. Because what you're competing against are these just behemoth organizations, self-organizing organizations that are using so much computing power to solve the nonce, essentially to validate the block. Keela, what do you think? Is there another like common question you think people have that they'd like to understand more about Bitcoin or the blockchain?
I think there's questions just around, like, you know Bitcoin and the value of it, but also, like, how does Bitcoin fit in with all the other blockchains that I hear of, like Ethereum and all these other ones? Well, like you had said earlier, open source kind of breeds innovation, and there's different types of blockchains using, different parameters to create a blockchain that's going to work for that application. There's even companies that are creating their own private blockchains. And so you could kind of argue, like, is it still blockchain if it's not like public? Because maybe it's only within a network of nodes, and you it's permissioned to be able to be a node and hold that ledger. So there's some questions there, but it's a similar type of technology. And then I think that spawns, okay, but how does an NFT fit into this? And what are they? Like, why is it important? How does it fit in? An NFT, you can think of it very similarly to Bitcoin. They're nearly synonymous. They're both tokens that are generated and tracked on a blockchain. But the difference is in Bitcoin, all coins, one coin is worth one coin is worth one coin. They're interchangeable. In an NFT, one NFT is actually different than another NFT, just like in art, in the art world. One painting is different than another painting and may hold a different value. But they're generated in similar ways. They're tracked on the blockchain in a similar way. So yeah, that's a little bit. And we can always go
That's
in
great.
more
Yeah.
on NFTs later.
Well, let's close with this. I think just maybe one more statement, because especially with NFTs, there's a lot of publicity about like, oh my gosh, my NFT of I can't remember what this thing is. It's like a dancing ape or something got stolen. There's so much media and press around theft of Bitcoin and hacking of Bitcoin. And so I'll maybe offer a closing remark there on it, which is I think it's really important for our audience to know that these are not the blockchains themselves that are getting hacked. So everybody that has Bitcoin, or they have tokens, and obviously there's dozens and dozens and hundreds of tokens, they reside in something called a digital wallet. And a digital wallet is a lot like a password manager, like LastPass or 1Password, like Google Chrome has a password manager, but essentially every address on a public blockchain has what's known as their public key. And that is a way of identifying who owns the stuff and things that are in that block. And the stuff and things, that can actually be text, that can be encrypted data. It's not just the Bitcoin itself. But the way that these, remain secure is that a public address is also paired with a private key. And so just because I know your public address does not mean that I have your private key and can access the information in your wallet. Well, the main ways that that there is theft or loss is, first of all, people are just plain losing their private keys. It happens. You save it on your desktop and then your computer crashes. Darn it. Don't do that. Just
Don't do that, yeah.
Don't do that for any passwords. I think another really common one is old-fashioned phishing, like the same kind of cybersecurity exploits. Remember, because you have a public address on the blockchain, it's possible for people to see how much Bitcoin you have. And obviously, the more Bitcoin you have, you become known as a whale, you become a target. And that's the same thing as what happens off the blockchain, which is, wealthy individuals get targeted, and it's largely social engineering and it's phishing, and that's getting you to think you're legitimately logging into a website when what you're actually doing is you're disclosing your private keys to others. And so I just think, the security of the private key is done in a digital wallet, and have really good hygiene and practices in how you store your passwords, how you store your private data, and always be vigilant. Don't get an NFT stolen through phishing. It's the exact same techniques or social engineering. And have confidence that the blockchain, this permanent, distributed, immutable ledger, is a safe place to conduct business. It's truly a phenomenal technology powered by cryptographic algorithms, which Keela and I have talked about. I think is one of humankind's greatest inventions, and it is secure. But it does have failure points, and unfortunately the failure points are the humans and our ability to keep our sensitive data secure.